Welcome to The Sears Show. Join us as we explore medicine, health, mental health, mindset, and fitness, guided by lifelong seeker of knowledge, Sifu Raphael. He will lead us on a transformative journey with groundbreaking insights and extraordinary guests from around the world. Together, we'll dive into the latest holistic approaches to well-being and the profound connections between mind, body, and soul. Sifu Raphael's expertise in positive thinking, resilience, and personal growth will inspire you to reach new heights. Get ready for the Sears Show. It's time to embrace a brighter, healthier, and more empowered future.
5, 4, 0.
Good morning, Dr. Brett. Thank you so much for joining me on the Sears Show. How are you?
Good morning, Sifu Raphael. It's great to see you as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to definitely touch upon a couple of different things, but one of them is you help so many people in so many different avenues of their life.
Yeah.
So let's get into how you personally help other people.
Well, lately I've been on this. There's several kicks I've been on: presence, patience, poise, perseverance, and perspective. I coach a lot of athletes and a lot of entrepreneurs and some executives. And the perseverance piece, most of them have in spades, but
Mm.
almost everyone can benefit from more presence, being in the present moment. More patience. So who of us can't benefit from more patience, right? So presence, patience, and then poise is the substrate, right? It comes from presence and patience. And so one of the things I was saying to a D1 football player the other day, because we were talking about toughness, is if the plane is going down, I want you to put a smile on your face. Because if it pulls out, then you're a hero. Everybody else is panicked. And if it doesn't pull out, you die with a smile on your face, right?
There you
So we
go.
want to get a little more. Now, obviously, that's the pull test, right? When everybody's screaming and panicking, but it is really nice when some of us have some real poise here. And I'm always teaching, presence, patience, poise, perseverance, and perspective. Again, the kind of people that I coach for the most part have a fair amount of perseverance. You do, obviously, right?
Mm.
But the other piece is perspective. Look what's going on in Israel right now. Perspective, right? People complain about their lives and they often lack perspective, and I often say that 85% of success on this planet is simply the family system you're born into, right? If you're born in a poor village in India or Pakistan and you're sold into slavery and building the Burj Khalifa or even worse, right? Then, what chance do you really have? So people lack perspective on that. They think they created all of it themselves when, some of it was simply your birth choice.
Yeah. It's somebody sent me a video about a plane on possibly going down.
Hmm.
And when you talked about perspective, there was a guy on the plane. Everybody they said, get your phones out, call all your loved ones. And one guy, you hear him on his cell phone calling his ex-wife and cursing her out, or his current wife, cursing her out and saying,
That's
you
brutal.
this and you this and you that and the other. And then somebody
So
looked at him.
brutal.
They were looking at him like, what is wrong with you? He goes, well, if I'm going down, I want to let them know how I really feel. And then so
Yeah.
everybody on the plane slowly saw his thing, like, yeah, I want to get this off my chest. They
No,
were calling
shit. So
their
everybody's
bosses.
screaming at their loved ones.
They
That's
were calling people that things
so
they never
brutal.
were able to say
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
that fear.
Yeah.
But then what happened is the captain came back on. He goes, wow, guess what? We're gonna actually make it. We're gonna come back
Totally.
up. And everybody's, no, you gotta
No,
crash the
no.
plane. You gotta crash the plane. So
Yeah.
you're right. It's all about perspective. And why should we hold on to those emotions when we should tell people how we feel so that,
Right.
but not in a derogatory way,
No,
but
of course not.
more in a empathetic ways, like you did this to me and I feel this way because of it.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts on
totally.
that, that plane
I mean, I
crash?
have 7 million thoughts on that because this is what I live. I live the things that I teach, right? So one
Hmm.
of the things I also say all week long is I'm not a Buddha because Buddhist philosophy is you handle things internally. You let
Mm,
things go. I meditate a lot, probably 6, 7, 8,000 hours in my lifetime, right? It's a lot more than most people. But
yeah.
that said, I playfully say, because it's true, I'm a genetic Jew. I need to self-express. So in the moment is what I teach people to do. I'm very good at it, but I've practiced for years and decades to handle things in the moment. That takes a lot of practice, right?
Hmm.
When we handle things right in the moment. The client base that I have, they're pretty sophisticated people, but they're not going to catch up to that for a while. We go over things over and over and over around self-expression and handling it. And eventually, when you self-express often, and you do it more in the moment, you get good at it. And good at it means that you have some kindness and some decency. When
Hmm.
you, I felt, whatever, not the you are stuff. You're an asshole is not good communication. What is, I'm uncomfortable when you scream at me, right? Say
Mm,
it, I'm uncomfortable. Or
yeah.
I'm upset when, right? And so I'm always teaching some form of self expression because, again, as much as I meditate, there's real value in letting someone else know what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. Therapists call that boundaries. I call it honoring yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I teach the little ones. One of the things is that people don't know how they feel unless they let
Mm,
them know how they feel. So, for
mm,
example, if somebody's bullying somebody, they have to tell them to stop it. And the reason they have to tell them to stop is because I don't like it. And
yeah,
then you also have to give them direction. Is like, don't do it again, right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
that goes for adults too, right? So
yeah.
even for an adult, you should be able to say to somebody, hey, you know what you're doing, I don't like, and do me a favor, don't do it again. Because
Yeah,
so
so
many times we think that, you know what, somebody's going to pour into me, whether it's negative, positive, whatever it is. If it's negative, I'll just absorb it and I'll be okay. But I don't think that's the right thing, correct?
no, I mean, look, I mean, the other thing that I talk about all week long is courage, creativity, open mind, open heart. Very few people
Mm,
actually live with an open heart, but that takes a ton of courage,
mm,
right? And so self-expression takes courage. And what I say again, often, I say this all the time. I say, look, when you express yourself a lot, 1 or 2 times out of 10, you will get smashed in the face, but that's great
right.
information, right? 7 or 8 times out of 10, there's going to be some real value in it, right? It'll lead to a breakthrough in some way. Those 1 or 2 times when someone's really aggressive or defensive, that's great information about helping you make better decisions about that relationship going forward.
Mm,
Do you want this person in your life, and to what degree do you want them in your life if they're that defensive or they're that aggressive whenever you try to honor yourself?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I love the fact that you brought up poise because so many people lack it.
Yeah, I mean that's an understatement. And I have funny stories about poise. I have holes in me everywhere. From when you go unconscious on this planet, something
Mm,
bad is usually going to happen, right? So I've got like wounds on me and things, and holes, and occasionally they're not my fault. Like I broke my wrist in COVID, and the place was negligent, right? And it was a
mm,
severe fracture, and it was torture, and that one wasn't on me. I had to look at the videotape 26 times or whatever it is, and so I know that wasn't me going unconscious. But there are other times when all of us go unconscious. Some people get into
mm,
car accidents. Some people say and do things they, regret later. Or, in my case, I've gotten injured a lot, from playing sports and other various things. I'm pretty physically active. And so
mm,
I'm constantly, attempting to get more and more present. Right. And as we get more present here, and we get more patient and we stay more in the moment and we express ourselves more clearly as we develop this, we're really developing tremendous interpersonal skill sets. But it's really about ultimately about getting so comfortable in our own skin that we're okay, with who we are, so then we can express ourselves to other, which again takes courage.
Yeah, I'm just imagining two people, one with poise, one without, and them both of them going through the same situation, which is probably a negative situation, but the one with poise would be able to carry it well compared to the person without poise.
100%.
Where do we learn poise?
Again, like some people have it more naturally. Let's just say Brock Purdy, was 3 years old and probably had some real poise, or Tom Brady at 3 might have had some
Mm,
poise. So there's probably a genetic substrate for it, meaning, everything is some continuum between, conditioning and our biology. So, but a lot of it's in our family systems as well, how we're raised.
mm,
Some people are going to develop more poise naturally, but it is something you can develop later in life. That's what I'm teaching, right? My
mhm,
twin brother and I, so I always say we were super athletic. And I think that, actually helps you with the poise because you're just good at things, like especially, on the sports field, whatever the sport was, we tended to be pretty good at it. So that's going to help, right? But
mm,
later in life, I'm teaching poise everywhere. Again, it comes back to learning how to be way more present and then way more patient. Patience is
mhm,
something that, like, is a beast. Like, it's a lot of work to be present, and it's a lot of work to be patient. Right?
mm.
You're in line at Starbucks. What's the tendency? Is to get impatient. What am I living and teaching? Be friendly and engaging to people around you. For the kids, you never know when the little old lady that you're saying hi to, because you're developing patience, has a
Mm,
granddaughter who's a great fit for you. See it? So I'm also teaching like a way of living that has perspective to it as well, right? Meaning, like, it's much broader than just patience. When you're more patient, you're creating more in the world. Interpersonally, you're way more attractive, especially if you're in the here and now.
yeah. So you're teaching people that their their effect in the world, their that pebble in the pond, that ripple effect of your
Yeah, the
actions
ripple
will
effect.
reflect.
Yeah, a woman that died, a few years ago that I was very close to, she used to talk about ripple effect. We talked 4 or 5 times a week for 25 years,
Mm,
and she died a few years ago suddenly. It was pretty devastating, but you're reminding me of a word she would use almost every time we talked, which was ripple effect. I
mhm,
live that ripple effect, meaning
mhm,
I try my best to be aware of the consequences of my actions and my energy, what I call my energy field, right? So I'm going to bring a level of decency and kindness the vast majority of the time. I tell people part of the reason why, excuse me, part of the reason why, like, I don't do much caffeine when I'm overtired is because that's when I'm no good. So you
mm.
put me on too much caffeine and I'm overtired, I'm not going to be very good. So, right. And that's what I'm going to lose some of these things we're talking about. Right.
Right.
And so that's why I'm aware of, my environment. Environment is also what you put in your system, right?
Mhm,
Like what you eat, how you
right.
sleep. That awareness is really important. And then
Yeah.
the self
Also, I
discipline
guess,
to act on it. Yeah.
yeah, also who you surround yourself with, right? That
Who you
affects you as
surround
well.
yourself with as well. Yeah, the low integrity types are a huge trigger for me. I try to stay clear of people that lack decency, kindness, and integrity. One of the
Mhm,
things I talk about often is if you want partnership in this lifetime, whether it's business or romantic, there's two things besides pretty, smart, and personable, or good looking, smart, and personable, whatever people are attracted to, right?
mhm.
You need integrity and kindness. Without it, you're swimming upstream like a salmon,
Yeah,
and a
totally.
Pacific salmon, the ones that, die before they
Right.
lay their eggs or right after their legs, or they get eaten by a bear. There you go.
Exactly, exactly. Jumping into the mouth of a bear. But so many of
Exactly.
us do that, right? We jump at situations. We jump at without even knowing all the facts
Well,
sometimes.
not like masters like you.
But a lot of us, right?
Right.
We do that, right? We blow off. We get crazy. Meanwhile, we don't know all the facts. So
Oh, so
I've
that's another thing. Yeah. So when you think about perspective is,
Mhm,
as you train your consciousness to be more present, and as you Like that's why I'm on meditation like white on rice. I mean, I'm just ferocious in terms of, getting everybody that I guide and coach to meditate, because the meditation really does change your nervous system and it does bring more self-awareness. There's so many things that I do in meditative states. I tell the story about the house that I'm living in. 3 years ago, I was in a meditative state and I was in so deep, I come out of it, and an hour later, my landlord calls. I was renting this house from my landlord, and he says, "I'm selling the house." And I go, "I know, I want to buy it." I knew in that meditative state he was selling the house, and I was
Mm,
prepared. I had a full, heads up from the universe, whatever you want to call that, right? And so I executed on that situation in COVID, right? Which
mm,
was pretty amazing, right? Because everything has doubled since then.
right. Right.
And so
Definitely.
that execution was in part because of my tenacity in the world, right? A lot of proactive action, which I live and
Mm,
teach, but the awareness that it was coming, the heads up, is super cool. And these
yeah.
meditative states give you that kind of awareness. And I could give you 8,000 examples of that, of, creating situations and dynamics from an intuitive knowing that comes in part through meditative states. In part, things are more, some people have more gifts. I never, my twin brother and I, we didn't have size, you know what I mean? So we didn't, there's
Mm,
nowhere to go with our athletic ability. We had other gifts. He made
right.
tens of millions on Wall Street, and I'm doing my share, to make a difference on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Different gifts, different ways of using them. This
100%.
morning, I got up 3:30, and I said, "Huh, let me go work out." So I worked out, and then I said, "Oh, I got some painting to do." So I painted this morning. And during my painting, I can throw music on or whatever, but I'm like, this is the perfect time for me to meditate. So while I was
Beautiful.
painting, rolling the wall, and then cutting it, I was like meditating. And
Yeah.
for me, in all the things that I do throughout my day, I find myself meditating so often that it does bring that awareness, right? Because yes, I may be doing a certain thing and I'm focused on what I'm doing, but I'm also able to enjoy that time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so that's beautiful. I mean, what you're describing is beautiful, and that's a little more sophisticated than where most people are at. They don't
Mm,
have the skill set developed enough to be able to walk and meditate, paint and meditate, right? I mean, I can
mm.
meditate on a subway platform, right? It doesn't matter where
Likewise,
I am,
yeah.
I can go right into a meditative state, right? But that comes with a lot of practice, and that's the other thing that I'm constantly teaching. I'm like, yesterday I had two, one was a pro athlete, one was a D1 that I was talking to, and both of them said the same thing. They're struggling to meditate, right? And I'm
Mm,
just like, well, of course you're struggling to meditate, right? You're new at it. How
mhm,
good were you at hockey, when you were 8 years old? Or, I mean, how
right.
good were you at soccer when you were 11, right? It
Mhm,
takes practice, right? And if you stay with it, the benefits come. That said, with the kids that are more physical, right? I almost always have them do something physical, like Wim Hof first, or push-ups first, or
mm,
workout first, then meditate, because they're not going to be able to just sit. Your
right.
skill set's already developed, right? That's
Mhm,
years. I can, I mean, with if I never met you before, I would know that's years, right?
mm,
That's not months for 99.9%, except the Dalai Lama types. They're four
right.
years old and they're coming in and they're already meditating. I sat on a park bench once with a 6-year-old. This was like decades ago. We walked to town from my office. This was in Connecticut. And we sat on a park bench, and the two of us had this deep chat about life and everything. And he was 6. So there are people that
Wow.
come in,
Mm,
what I mean, with these special gifts, the Michael Jordan gifts, or whether it's around meditation or communication or whatever it is. Maybe Tony Robbins came in that way at age 6, right? He's
mm,
communicating like a 30-year-old. I don't
right.
know. I'm guessing maybe. But for the most part, these things have to be developed. How long have you been meditating?
Mm, yeah. Me, my whole life,
How long?
basically.
Yeah, there it is. So
Yeah,
that I know intuitively,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's no way you're painting and meditating if you just started yesterday. Not
No.
happy.
You're worried
Pretty
about
much your
putting
whole
the
life.
paint on you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. You'll be painting like your cousin instead or something.
Yeah. So when we consider the fact that you are helping these athletes, when they
Mhm.
first come to you, how adverse are they to even consider meditation? Is it something that you really have to sell them?
Yeah, so here's how I sell it, right? And it's playful, but it's also there's some level of truth to it. So if they're males, excuse me, Um, if they're males, there's a good chance I'm going to motivate them by helping them do a better job of, interpersonally getting laid, metaphorically speaking,
Mhm.
right? Or making money, right? It's a metaphor for, motivating them to do the personal growth journey. They're going to get
Mhm.
better in the physical universe, right?
Right.
Through their interactions with people. And with the girls, I'm going to say something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how neurotic is your mom? And no
Mm.
one ever answers that question. They just laugh and go, "Oh my God, Dr. Brad, she's so neurotic." Now, how do I
Yeah.
know that? Because a lot of moms tend to be neurotic because they're so worried about their kids and they
Mhm.
don't train their minds. If you don't train your mind, you're going to be neurotic.
Right.
And so I'm motivating kids to meditate, practice mindfulness, visualize, use your breath, and so on through meditative states and through being more successful in the world, right?
Mm. You
And
you
through
just said
performance as well, right? Their performance will go way up, right?
yeah, you just said something really important, which was to envision, right?
Mm.
To because it'll improve your performance because you envision yourself doing it, right? So that becomes meditative because in order for you to see yourself progressing, you actually have to meditate on that, don't you?
Yeah, well, it's also see and feel because some people can't see as well, right? So,
Mm.
yeah. So, what we do is we teach them to go into meditative states and then they allow their focus to move towards what they want to create and experience in the future. If it's a downhill skier, she's going to see all the different gates and everything, the slalom course or giant slalom course, right? If you're basketball, you're seeing yourself making the jump shot, or hockey, taking the shot, soccer, taking the shot, stuff like that.
Right.
You can see it, and then some people, the ideal way is to see it and feel it, right? See and feel it. Like I knew the house was coming, right? I
Mm.
started to see it and feel it, right? It was just a sense I was getting. And then when I'm in that meditative state and the landlord calls me an hour later, I knew it was coming because I was starting to feel it,
Mm.
right? And when I was in the house, I saw the possibility. This house is Mediterranean Spanish style. When I lived in Los Angeles, I always wanted the Mediterranean style house, right? Always, my whole life. I grew up
Mm.
in Connecticut with colonials, and I
Mm.
never was attracted to colonials. It's not me, it's not a fit.
Mm.
So I always knew intuitively that this kind of style home was a fit. Then we rent here, and then when the opportunity came, that's where you take the massive action, right?
Yeah.
Because without massive action, as you know, we're limited in the world. And then, of
It's also
course, yeah, good.
being decisive on it, right? Take
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's also course correcting along the way, is what I wanted to add. Massive action without constant course correction, the guys don't get laid, right? If they
mm.
I have the kids watch Groundhog's Day sometimes, right? Because it's a funny movie with Bill Murray, but it's all about practice and getting better at your craft, whatever that is, whatever craft
Mhm.
that is, like hitting a baseball, right? I'm coaching a lot of baseball players, right? And, for whatever reason, I've got so many baseball, soccer players, it's crazy. And we grew up playing baseball, so I understand that game well. And I'm really enjoying the playoffs right now. The Texas Rangers are playing so well.
Mm.
Houston's always good. I mean, it's just so fun. But I don't watch till the playoffs. But I got these kids now. Some of them are getting close to the major leagues. A lot of them are D1s that want to be pros and everything. And I'm always helping them what I call get it right, which is your mission, especially as a male. Women have a mission as well, but as a male, it's really important to have a mission. So when they step in that batter's box, their mission is to, and then they say to get a hit or to win, and I go ding, 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 wrong. That's not their mission. Their
Mm.
mission is to be so freaking present they can't help but put the barrel of the bat on the ball. And when you put that barrel of the bat on the ball, 1 out of 3 times it's going to drop.
Mm.
And now you're
Now,
hitting 333. And if you're
now
a
I
pitcher,
understand.
it's the same thing. It's all about the process in the moment. You know what I mean? Same thing with hockey, any sport, right? I'm coaching a pro tennis player. We were just talking last night. He's on the ATP tour. It's pretty exciting because we're catching him around 500 in the world, which is impressive, right? There's only
Mhm.
800 Major League Baseball players and there's, roughly 2,300 billionaires, right? So to be on, inside the top 500 in the world is impressive, but he'll never get inside the top 100 unless he embraces the mental game for real. What is that mental game? It's the part of the iceberg, the 90% below the surface, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual realm. Spiritual being present moment in time at a really high level, right? That's the way I'm going to process it for the kids. It might be deeper than that, but that's fine. Most people are on the 10% of the iceberg. They can see the physical universe. And
Mm.
so my job, playfully, one of my jobs is to make fun of these genetic specimens because these kids are big, strong, fast. One of the kids is 6'6", 240 with 4.5 speed, right? So
Mm.
these are big kids that when they start working with me, go underneath the iceberg, the part you can't see, and really start to address the mental, emotional, and spiritual realms. And that's where the horsepower is, because as I say all the time, 2 pounds of uranium can blow up an entire city. It's all
Mm.
energy.
Mhm. I'm listening to you and I'm going, how important it is for an athlete to have a coach.
Oh
Not
my
just
God,
a
it's
physical
insane.
coach, not just a
A mental
physical
game
coach.
coach.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so what you're doing is really helping everybody elevate their game.
Absolutely, but what we're doing, one of the distinctions I have, because some of these kids had sports psychologists before me, is I'm going to handle the business end of it. I have a lot of business coaching background, a lot of business experience, and an entrepreneur end of it, right? So I'm going to handle the business end, but we're also going to handle relationship with self and other at a really high level. I had a lot of girlfriends before I became happily married. I worked on
Mm.
me for so long. I was able to choose a partner wisely. But then, even when you choose wisely, the relationship still has to be developed every freaking day. I'm a communicator, right? And so every day of my life, we're in some form of play and or negotiation. And my wife, to
Mm.
her credit, is extremely talented in terms of just such decency and such kindness. And she's, of course, pretty smart and personable. But that's only the part of the iceberg you can see, the pretty smart,
Mm.
personable part. The underneath is the kindness and the integrity, and then the development around the communication, which we do every day. So with these athletes, I teach them how to be motherfuckers around communication with their
Mm.
coaches, with their parents, with their girlfriends, with their boyfriends, whomever. If you can't communicate on point, you're limited.
That's huge. That's huge without a doubt. One of the things that it's very constant in a great relationship, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, but any relationship, communication is the number one. Uh, that will affect your future, your outcome, your finances, everything. So I agree with you 1,000%.
A
You
thousand
know,
percent.
one of the things that my girlfriend and I do all the time is we laugh
Yeah, go
every
ahead.
day.
There you go.
We
So you're a
we
happy dude.
literally we crack up all the time. And even before we go to sleep, we're so ridiculously silly that I said, if somebody was watching us, they'd think we're crazy because we're laughing at the silliest things. But that just even before you go to sleep, that joy that you go to sleep with is something that's really profound where you actually have a really great night's sleep. What are your thoughts
Look,
on
I
that?
mean, that's awesome. I mean, look, that's what we're living a similar experience that way. I was going to bring that up as well, not, being playful and, and the partnership in terms of the laughter. I was telling, Sifu, I was telling this story, but when I was back in Connecticut, and my wife said to me when we had the experience, she's like, "How many people are you going to tell the story to?" And I said, "I don't know, 25, maybe 50." And because she knows me, I'm a storyteller, right? But
Right.
it's a silly story, but it's hilarious. It sort of encapsulates our relationship, right? And so we're walking on our pathway on the inlet here with the two big dogs, and this was a couple weeks ago, and there's some girl in a bikini with a crazy ass, right? And my wife, of course, feels like it's her duty to point that out, as if I'm not going to see it. And so I say "Tud dimak," which in Thai means nice ass. And my
Mhm.
and then my wife smiles, and I look at her and I go, "Don't worry, babes, I'm not leaving you for 20 virgins." And without any hesitation, she says to me, she goes, "Babes, you're almost 60." And so it was like the funniest response, right? But the two, and then I have pure appreciation for her, right? It's like
Mhm.
I was just like, you're right.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
we have that silly, playful energy. Like we can share anything. We can, I mean, that's an example of, freedom in a relationship without the stupidity stuff.
Yeah. Well, that right there talks about the confidence you have in each other, the trust you have in each other, that you can
That's
say
insane.
anything, right?
Anything. Doesn't matter. It's
Anything.
insane.
Because,
But again, that's a lot of work, right?
yeah. Well, yeah, like my girlfriend will go, check her out. She's hot. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. She is hot.
Yeah,
But
but see, you need her to say, "Oh yeah, you're right. We already know."
no, 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 no,
No,
no.
no,
Maybe I
no.
didn't see her. She goes, look
I
over there, and
gotcha.
I look over there. I'm like, oh, whoa, thank you. So,
Thank you. Exactly. Thank you so much.
thank you for sharing
Thai
because
Cup kun krap, in Thai.
that's. But when we consider relationships, it's that there are certain finite relationships that you can have that ultimate trust with. You can't do that with every relationship because they don't fully understand, I believe, right? You
Yeah.
can't have that relationship with somebody you just met. You can have that relationship maybe even with your partner in a business aspect.
Mm,
But there comes a deeper relationship that you can have with one person, maybe two people in your
mm.
lifetime. But I don't think that
I
that
definitely
deep
think you can
relationship.
go. Yeah, I definitely think, Sifu, I think you can go a little, like I'm living, now look, some of this is, higher skill sets and a lot of focus over long periods of time, but I
Mhm,
definitely think you can develop much more depth in general. I agree with you, but I think you can develop much more depth in general with more people if you
mhm,
approach the experience so heads up straight up from the beginning and then address whatever the funkiness is because I'm constantly inviting people, the client base, the friends and everything to go deeper with me because I'm a twin. I'm a heart-based guy. I like, what I mean, I like partnerships. So when I work with people, I say we're going to create a partnership for your personal growth. But those
mhm,
partnerships become pretty deep because
mhm,
any funkiness I'm going to address over and over. I don't let it go. When people are funky, I don't let it go. And so you actually can create more depth, maybe not the same kind of depth with the everyday partner, but you
mhm,
can go a lot deeper with a lot more people, but it takes a lot of tenacity. It really does. Meaning you got to develop that capacity. And a lot of people don't have the capacity for, 5, 10, 15, 20 deeper relationships. In my case, it's even more because of my client base, right?
right,
But
right.
that capacity is something, it is a muscle. Now, some people have more genetic gift on it, meaning they're more wired, intuitive. Some people are more wired to make money or whatever it is. They're
Mhm,
focused, right? Or to gamble or to like, just focus on golf. Because if you want to be a pro golfer, like think about you're hitting 1,000 balls a freaking day, 6 or 7 days a week, right? So your focus is narrowed out for long, long periods of time. So
mhm,
we're all going to be a little bit different that way, but I can tell you from a lot of experience that we can develop more of that, but you're going to need to go straight up right away and get deeper quicker. Deeper quicker means not being afraid to share. I tell people all the time, you can ask me anything. I don't have anything to hide. If for some reason there's something I don't want to share, I have the full skill set to be able to say that's personal.
Mhm.
But for the
Yeah.
most part, I have nothing to freaking hide. Nothing. I
Mm,
don't have that fear that somehow, because if you start judging my ass, then I'm getting the information I need to make better decisions. I call the
mhm.
sonar pulse. When you self-express, you ever see that movie, The Hunt for Red October,
Yes.
with Sean Connery? When you
Mhm.
send out a sonar pulse, it bounces off the enemy sub, comes back and lights up your sub. But that's self-expression because you're going to get the information by sending out the sonar pulse. It's going to bounce out, it's bounce back. It's going to give away your position, but
Mm.
most of the time you're going to be better off. Sometimes they're going to shoot a freaking missile at you.
Yes. You know, what I love about you is the fact that you allow your clients to go deeper into who they are, because a lot of people don't really find out who they are until they do the work, right? And a lot of people are afraid of doing that work, of truly finding out who they are, because they keep telling themselves they think they know who they are. But until they go into the deep work that you're talking about to truly know who they are and to know what their capabilities are as well. When you take on a new client, is it I'm sure you don't bombard them with it because you have to build up, right? So it's that trust that they have to have in you to know that, hey, you know what, I can tell Dr. Brett anything.
That's
But
part of the reason I'm so playful, right?
yeah,
In the I
yeah,
mean, I'm
that
very
makes sense.
playful around personal growth because
Mhm,
I want to take some of the pressure off because it's going to be an intense journey. One of the
mm,
things I was thinking when you shared is over the years, over the decades, I've coached a bunch of medical doctors and lawyers and people that roughly are going to quit at some point in their journey. And the
mm,
reason they're going to quit in general is because when the personal growth gets thick around the year, then a lot of times they're stuck structures. They might be in a bad marriage, or they might not really 70, roughly 70% of medical doctors or lawyers hate their job. I
mm,
often say 10% love it, 20% like it, and 70% are freaking miserable, right? And so then they have to do something about that. They can't hide about 6 months to a year in because the truth
mm,
becomes so apparent, and a lot of people will quit the personal growth journey because it's too scary to change something where you're making 3 4 500K, right? Or you're in a marriage and with children and you don't really want to make that change even though it's not a real partnership. And so
right.
so personal growth is a massive challenge for almost everybody. A lot of people aren't ready for who I am and what I'm about, and I'm okay with that. I'm 57, right? So
Mm,
at 57, if you're not ready for me, I'm going to make it fun. I'm going to make it creative. I'm going to make it be, it's going to be a lot of work, right?
yeah.
It is going to be a lot about courage. And it is going to be
Mhm,
a lot about creativity. And I am going to ask you to open your mind. And the open heart piece, like I said, that's way down the road. Most people are not going to live with an open heart. It's just too much courage.
mm. That does take a lot of courage
Yeah.
to to
It
be
takes
able to.
courage also to be kind in a
Yeah,
culture that's not that kind.
yeah, yeah. And what you talked about what's going on in Israel, you know, when we can think of another person and we wanna hurt them because they don't think the way we do. Man, that is so hard to comprehend for me because I love everybody, you know? I'm that
Yeah.
kinda
Well, we're,
guy,
no, I know.
and
It's why I
all I
like
wanna
you.
do is help, you know?
I know we're
It's
wired similar, dude.
yeah, yeah.
We're wired. That's similar wiring. But some people have hate, conditioned hate over decades,
Mm,
and then they're
right.
just going to butcher other human beings. And then when they butcher, it's obviously a complex scenario. And I can empathize with both sides. The
Mm,
women and children part is just devastating on both sides. But butchering babies and butchering, it's hard to fathom for people that aren't, like I've worked through most of the anger and stuff when I was, like decades ago, right?
Right.
Because most of us are going to come out of our family systems or out of our environments with some degree of insecurity or anger or whatever it is, right? And then the question is, are you going to embrace personal growth and to what extent? And if you embrace it for real, then you're going to take total responsibility for your life and everything in it. And there's going to
Mhm.
be no blame, which means sometimes you have to leave an environment. I've left environments that aren't a fit, right?
Mhm.
But that takes courage, whether that's a relationship. I've gone through a lot of breakups in order to be, in the place I am today. I've changed locations many times in my life because environments matter, and I've
Mhm.
changed my diet because environments matter, right?
Well, changing your diet is also a reflection of what you're looking for, what you want, right? The intentions that you have for yourself, right? And your future too, because a lot of people go on a diet because they're pleasing other people. But overall, I always say to somebody who says to me they want to lose weight, I'll say, sure. How much do you want to lose? Let's say 20, 30 pounds. I say, okay, great. How long have you wanted to lose it for? Oh, and have you ever lost it before? Yes. Okay. So why did you gain it back? Oh, because of this or that, the other. I said, so do you want to do this yo-yo thing again, or do you want to do it for real? And
Mm.
then I said, what's your end result? Let me ask you, 20 years from now, how much overweight do you want to be? Like, I don't want to be overweight. I said, so your decision has to be now, right? And it has to be forever. So that's how I help people like understand their principles of where their weight is to be lost. It's not in their body. To me, it's in their mind, right?
Yeah, and as you're aware, there's a deeper emotional component called, am I good enough? Am I lovable? Do I deserve? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't deserve, right? On some psychological, emotional level, they're not deserving of the kind of health and happiness that they say they want. And so that's a deeper personal growth journey, getting aligned there, getting to a
Mm,
place where you deserve it, right? Or you want to experience it. Or, in my case, I don't want to be in the system. Like, I mean,
mm,
I'm fiercely independent. I don't really want a doctor trying to put me on meds, right? So I want to get as healthy as possible so I can stay out of that system because I think, the 4.3 trillion-dollar healthcare system, half of it is irresponsible or a scam, right? It's just
mm,
all these meds and all this surgeries and all this stuff when so much of it can be changed through lifestyle, right? Lifestyle changes, right?
mm.
Right? Personal growth being part of it, meditative states, obviously, but staying off the Doritos.
There you go. And the ice cream every day. I
And the
knew
ice
I knew a
cream.
gentleman who ate ice cream, a whole gallon, a whole tub of ice cream every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the guy was thin, but I'm like, what do your insides look like? I gotta wonder, all the
Well,
sugar and all that stuff.
pre-diabetic or diabetic is what he's
Yeah.
going to be, right? You can't help it. You're spiking your insulin levels so much. But I mean, look, that's unconscious. Some people are doing that consciously, but a lot of people, that's a form of self-sabotage, right?
Mhm.
We all do self-sabotage, all of us, right?
Mhm.
That's a little more intense form of self-sabotage. It's similar to, smoking weed every day. People say it's medicinal, but if you're smoking a lot of weed, it's not medicinal. You're going to be eating like
Not
fucking
anymore.
crap and you're going to be slowing yourself down, right? You're going to kill your short-term memory.
Mhm.
If you're vaping, right? So these habits, if you're playing, doing 7 hours of scrolling, so that's just a form of self-sabotage and it becomes an addiction. He's addicted to the sugar, someone else is addicted to the TikTok, someone else is addicted to porn, right? Those addictions are rampant and they're hard to address. I mean, you have to be, pretty serious and pretty ready to, and do a lot of habit change, habit substitution, right?
Mm.
And that's really how you tackle addiction, right?
So when we think of athletes, so many of them do such amazing, great work to get to the high level. Then they get to the high level and then they go into addiction stuff. they go into the drugs, they go into the porn, they go into
I
all
mean,
the
I would say the
negativity.
symptoms were always there. They were just doing
Mm,
them, they were just doing them. They've always been doing some form of addiction, I would say, because one of the
mm,
things that I say often is if you're not addicted to, food, alcohol, weed, porn, TikTok, chocolate, whatever, you're probably addicted to thought.
mm,
And so that's why the meditation, mindfulness, visualization, breath work is so powerful because when you meditate a lot, you have a lot less thought. And so that's why I'm motivating those girls by saying, look, how neurotic is your mom? Because I know there's a small chance she's going to train her mind. Every once in a while, when I talk to the parents first and I'm talking to some mom and I playfully say this, and she's like, I actually meditate. I'm like, I'm so proud of you, right? So there are moms out there that meditate and practice mindfulness and visualize and use their breath. I just haven't met a ton of them. And that's why I can make that playful joke about, hey, look, we got to help you train your mind here because
mm,
otherwise you're going to wind up neurotic. And with the guys, I'm like, you ain't never getting laid on the, I mean, if you're this fucking neurotic, right? It's just not going to happen. Right.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
need to motivate them to train their minds. So I'm just,
yeah,
right. So on some level, personal growth, like we come full circle here, people do need to be motivated. And then, because there's so many obstacles, right? The deserving, the desiring, the am I good enough? Am I lovable? That's underneath for almost everybody. And those are deeper themes no matter how accomplished the athlete is. Because if you're 100 in the world, right, and you want to get inside the top 10, you've got to deserve at the highest level now. It's
mhm,
another level of deserving if
right,
you have the genetic ability. Because a lot
mm,
of people like to say in our culture, anybody can do it, and that's complete horseshit. You need
right,
the genetic, ability, right? It
mm,
doesn't matter that Kobe Bryant got cut in 8th grade. He had the genetic ability. So we like to point out, how great attitudes are. Well, I've coached a lot of kids with amazing attitudes that had no chance. They just
mm,
weren't, specimens in that way. And when you
mm,
meet some of these pros, which I've met in person many times, they're ridiculous. Like I golfed with JT Thomas, just the two of us last year, the former linebacker for the Giants. And he's like one of those guys with the 34-inch thighs and 28-inch waist and shoulders that are so freaking, crazy. It's nuts. I mean, that's not gonna, one of the other linebackers I'm coaching that's a D1, he's a big kid and everything, but he's not JT Thomas. He's not sitting there like, like with
right,
that kind of like athletic ability. So usually at the highest levels, they have the it, and
mhm,
then the attitude is of development process. A great attitude is important, but then you have great beyond great, right? I mean,
mm,
at the highest level, Djokovic is gonna be ferociously determined around the mental game. It's not just all the things he does for his body, but he's doing a lot of things for his mind and spirit.
mm. Definitely. You talk about all the different athletes and how they have the it factor, and that's it. So if we don't have the it factor, can we have the it factor for ourselves?
Well, that's the personal growth journey about getting
Mhm.
comfortable in your own skin. And that's a brilliant question, right? Can we have the it factor for ourselves? And the answer is everybody can do enough personal growth that they become more and more comfortable in their own skin. Now, if
Right.
you were molested your entire childhood, that's going to be, a pretty rough journey, right? Some
Mm,
people were sexually molested as, 3-year-olds. That's going to
right.
create like long-standing imbalances and nasty dynamics. So, can everybody be completely comfortable in their own skin? No, probably not. Can most people? Yes. And is that a lot of
Mhm.
work? It's a ton of work, and that's the challenge. It's
Mhm.
actually a ton of work.
Mhm.
But there are people that do get destroyed as children, right? I mean, you can't allow things like incest. That's something that, needs to be punished, with, machetes or whatever it is, playfully speaking. But,
Right.
it's not acceptable, right?
Mhm.
It's just really important to start that journey somewhere. And then, as you do the personal growth journey, as there's going to be different teachers along the way. And part of personal growth is knowing when to move on from a teacher who's not, you have to live it, right? They can't take you to a place ultimately. No teacher is going to take you to a place of happiness if they're not freaking living it, right? So,
Without a
you know, one
doubt.
of the things I often say also is grad school in psychology was amazing in so many ways, but it didn't teach the two most important things that were necessary for success, which is how to build a business and how to be happy. I didn't
Mm,
learn any of those in 5 years of grad school and then a year residency, 6 years to get licensed as a
mm,
psychologist. I didn't those 2 things. I just talked to a 22-year-old kid who's gonna intern. She's getting a master's, in sports in psychology, and I just picked her up yesterday as a Dr. Brett intern because she doesn't have the kind of mentoring that I'm gonna be able to offer her. That
mm,
master's program will not teach her how to build a business and how to be happy, and I will teach her those 2 things.
mm. So she's a very lucky and fortunate young lady.
Well, she was funny and personable. She had a great sense of humor, like because I'm gonna be so real. I'm not for everybody, right? Like some of my metaphors, people will get uptight over, right? So what? You know what I mean? So we're not a fit. But in her case, we resonated, right? It's just the first conversation, but I could feel the potential fit. And she's an athlete. That helps, right?
Yeah, that does help. Dr. Bird, I got to tell you, amazing, amazing conversation as always, my friend. And it was long overdue. It was long overdue.
Yeah, it's been a
So,
couple years or something, right?
yeah, I want to thank you for today. And
Yeah,
we need to
definitely.
talk some more. Do me a favor. We're going to say goodbye to everybody. Just hang on for a sec, okay? Everybody, do me a favor. Make sure you follow Dr. Brett, drbrettdenkin.com. Listen, if you're an athlete, if your son is an athlete, your daughter's an athlete, you gotta get connected with Dr. Brett. He
Awesome.
is gonna take your child to the next level without a. So do me a favor, follow the show, and we'll see you again next week. Take care, everybody.